Hey everyone, we have Eliz on today, and she is a TC, top tier TC that is. And we do work together from time to time, but I really wanted to bring her on just to talk about the importance of using a TC in your transactions. Welcome aboard, Jace.
Thanks for having me, Paul. This is something that I'm really excited to talk to you guys about today. And so yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, so let's jump into what is a TC, because a lot of people really don't know.
That's a great question. So a TC is a transaction coordinator. My background's in project management, so I essentially like to look at it as a project manager for the overall transaction flow. So a lot of our investors kind of fall into two categories. They're either newer or they might do one or two deals a year. They want to be sure that they are checking all the boxes along the way, right? And then on the flip side, we have investors that are so busy, they don't have time to be in the nitty-gritty details of every single deal. And so they really want to like high level verify the most important parts. And then they want somebody to tell them, hey, this is what day you're showing up. This is how much money to bring. Here's the documents you're going to have to sign and call it a day.
Okay, so let's jump between the difference of a TC in our world, the creative finance world, and just, some of the things that we do that aren't super creative, but are useful to have a TC, and like a TC on the traditional real estate, your traditional home buyer. Like, what is the difference that we do between them?
Yeah, so a traditional transaction coordinator is going to be very similar in the project management role. However, most, primary home purchases or simple investment home purchases where you have a mortgage, it's listed on the MLS, et cetera, that's going to be a much more simple and streamlined transaction than a lot of your creative deals or a lot of deals where there's private lending involved. So those TCs, and it varies state to state, but they might help with the listing. They might help with scheduling. They might help with getting contracts executed, things like that. On the creative side, there are a lot more moving pieces and a lot more parts that all have to fit together seamlessly. So for example, I'm working on a transaction right now that has seller financing. The seller is carrying back a portion of their equity to the investor. There's a loan in place that the investor is taking over. So there's two moving pieces right there. And then there's a private money partner as well who's bringing additional funding into the deal for some closing costs and things like that. So right off the bat, we already have a ton of players, a ton of different pieces. There's essentially three big pieces to this transaction that we need to be sure all of the loose ends are tied up in that before we can close. And so it's really nice to have one point of contact who's managing a lot of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. So let's jump into what your TC team looks like. Like, how many people do you have on your team? And you're the senior TC that runs the whole team, correct?
Yes, I am. So I currently have a team of five. We closed 70 deals in the second half of last year just for clients. So that doesn't include my transactions or anything that I lent on. So I started building out a team, and my goal for each and every one of them is that they are as educated as I am, if not more, on every single thing. So we do weekly training, we run through files together. A lot of times we'll JV files, even with more experienced TCs, so that there is constant like cross-pollination. We can all see how people do things and learn best practices. And I really love the team environment for a number of different reasons. That being said, we kind of have three areas that we focus heavily in. Private money being the first one. I'm a private money lender myself and Gator, so I have a lot of strength in that area. We work with a ton of wholesalers. And again, those are a lot of them are just doing a ton of volume and they want somebody to they come in, they lock up the contract, and they really want to be done until close of escrow at that point. And then we also do some creative deals as well.
Awesome. What is your TC company called?
Triple Crown transactions.
Love it. All right. So let's get into some of the first we'll touch on private money since we're probably doing the most of that in our community, really. That's probably what I'm guessing that's what you're seeing the most of outside of your wholesaling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I work with a ton of private money lenders. And we can talk all about it.
Yeah. So what do you do as a TC and what do you not do when you're dealing with these types of transactions?
This is a really good question. So I cannot write documents for you. Okay. Um, and this is something that I think has been a little bit of a myth in the creative space. So we don't write any documents for you. We can help you find somebody to write your documents, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I need you to select the attorney or document preparer that you're going to use. But I can give you a list. I can say, hey, here's who we've used, things like that. Um, I will look through your documents, right? A lot of times, these are templates that people are using. And so maybe the attorney, didn't have the whole legal description in there, things like that. But I'm not an attorney. So at the end of the day, I cannot give you legal advice and say, hey, this is wrong. That being said, and I'm just going to throw this in here as like a quick fun tip. Paul, you and I have talked about this extensively. Any documents that you have for a transaction, you want to make sure that default is clearly outlined and that what you need to do to cure default is also outlined. Because the worst thing in a transaction is being in a situation where that's vague or unclear, not only from a standpoint of you don't know what to do next, but there's no consequences for a party in that transaction not performing. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. We, like I said, do not give legal advice, don't do contracts. I am trying to think, like, at the end of the day, I need you to verify all the facts of your transaction are there. We're certainly looking at everything. We pick up a ton of mistakes. I found 6 mistakes in a purchase and sale one time as I was leaving my hotel room, walking down to the lobby with my suitcase. So like we can pick up a lot of things. And at the end of the day, everybody needs to agree that the facts of the transaction are what is reflected in the documents, right? And that's part of the final review that we do with our clients in terms of, hey, here's everything. We need you to confirm and approve this. Um, Go ahead.
Oh
Sorry.
no, you're good. I was going to say another great thing about a team like yours that's doing a lot of transactions is a lot of these new investors, especially, they don't have your resources. So you can refer them, but you're also, like you said, saying you're not telling them you have to use these people. These are just people that we've used in the past. So
Yes.
you give that person a leg up so they don't have to go researching everything. And now they at least have a list to start with, and they know that this type of transaction has been done by this attorney, this title company, and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. And that is the power of referrals in real estate is so good and so crazy. Like I have a kind of off the wall wholesale transaction that I'm working on right now and got referrals from a few different transaction coordinator friends. And I was like, hey, who have you guys used? Who do we think can do this? I we emailed them, we sent all the information of the deal. We're like, hey, can you do this? And the one who we ended up selecting, they wrote back and they're like, oh my gosh, no problem. We do this all the time. Oh, and by the way, here's a way that we can streamline it to make it even smoother. Right. So, um, the power in those referrals and having that, because this isn't a title company that I think I would have found on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so helpful. I mean, every single time I'm doing a deal, I am building out my list of title companies, attorneys, legal, anything that's going to help me in the future or helps one of my clients in the future, and lenders, honestly. You're seeing the same paperwork over and over again on some of the repeat lenders on certain types of deals. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
awesome. So, when it comes to the more creative deals, what have you done? Like sub two, we've talked about Morbies and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a creative investor myself. I love buying on creative deals. And then my brain is also hardwired for optimization. So sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, the weirder the better. I have done sub two deals. I have done sub two like hybrids where there's a seller carryback element. We're working on a couple of Morbies right now. Have not closed one yet, but we're working on developing a really good process for that, which I'm really excited about. Lease options. I've worked a couple novations. Again, same thing. These haven't closed, but I'm really excited about the system that I'm building out to be able to close these efficiently.
Awesome. Um, on top of that, though, like when you're running through all your systems with your team, how many deals can you really take on a month, or is it really deal specific on what type of deal you have in the pipeline?
That's a great question. So a lot of it, you're only as strong as your team. And the thing that I love about my team is that they're trained to my standards and I'm very hands-on. So like I have a daily check-in where we just kind of check in once a day. Um, it depends on the bandwidth of the team and it depends on how many transactions that we have going on at any given time. So, for example, our PML deals are typically a very short window. Like these might last a week, kind of two at most. Same thing with a lot of wholesale deals. Typically these close within a month or so. Now, if we have a few more creative deals, I had a novation that was on my books for 2.5 months that we were trying to get closed. And ultimately that one didn't end up working out, but that was something that where even though it took a very long period of time, a great deal of my time was being spent on that and following up and trying to figure out how to do things. So, and then there's other things where the seller or the buyer don't want to close until a specific time and it sits on the books forever, but there's not a lot of active there. So in terms of bandwidth, when my team was a team of two and I was still training one, it was me and one other person, we did close 11 deals in 1 week. And we lovingly refer to that as Hell Week.
Yeah,
But it was nice to see what we could do when put to the test, but that's not a healthy or sustainable pace with only two people.
right. And we won't go into all your fees, but for a typical like private money lending deal, what do you
Yeah.
typically charge?
Yeah, standard PML, nothing weird, 1K. It's most transaction coordinators will take 50% upfront, 50% at close of escrow. That upfront fee is typically non-refundable, but the one at close of escrow, if the deal doesn't close for whatever reason, typically that's not collected.
Okay.
So that's
And
the
then
fee
some of the
structure
more
that we utilize.
yeah, some of the more creative stuff that, we're kind of working on, but how do we like, for instance, let's cover a Morby. Now, I'm not going to say that these fees aren't going to change, but what do we have
Yeah.
working on right now?
Yeah, so I think for Morbius, and I hate giving it depends answers, and
Yeah,
there's so much nuance
there
in real
is.
estate. I will say this, one thing that we offer if you are considering a Morby is an intake fee. And so we get together, we meet for 60 minutes. We charge 149 for that. And we sit down and kind of run through the deal structure. Sometimes we've even seen ways to set up the deal to be more optimal and avoid that Morby structure completely, which is really, really nice for everybody. Not only does it save you the trouble of getting a traditional mortgage or a DSCR, which is very paperwork and time intensive, it can potentially save you money on closing costs, TC fees, all the things. So we do offer that. And typically, once we have an idea of the full scope of the transaction, we'd be able to give you a better idea on pricing because that may change if you're utilizing things like transactional lending or closing at two different title companies or something like that.
Or breaking up a portfolio into
We're
two different
breaking up.
loans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And don't get me wrong, Morbies are amazing for taking down some of, commercial assets, multifamily assets, big scatter portfolios, things like that. It can create a ton of opportunities. So
Yeah. Awesome. So before we jump off of this, how can my viewers contact you if they are looking for a transactional coordinator?
yes, absolutely. So my email is jace@triplecrowntransactions.com. I hang out on Instagram the most. It's at the PML Baddie,
Love it.
and I'm on Facebook as well.
Awesome. I'll put that all in the description of this video. Any last thoughts you want to leave my viewers with?
Yeah. Oh my God, I have so many things. I don't even know where
Okay,
to
give
start.
me three. Give me three last thoughts.
Okay. Um, Let me see. Okay, the first one is or on FOMO. It is so easy to see like everybody else having wins, doing deals, all the things. And I have learned that the objectively worst deals I have ever done have come from that space of, oh, it's been a minute since I've done something. Oh, look at what somebody else is doing. Ooh, I need to go do something. right? And so I have learned that I would rather be sitting on the sidelines saying, I really wish I had done that deal, instead of sitting in the deal being like, oh, I really wish I had not done this deal. So that's thing one. Thing two, I will say I love my team and I feel like we're really strong because we're all investors and lenders ourselves. Um, that's one thing that I wish I had known in selecting some of the people who are helping me early on is like find the people who are doing the things that you want to do and who really understand the transaction in depth, who know to ask the nuanced questions and work with them. And I don't say that to toot my own horn because there are plenty of really talented, really knowledgeable transaction coordinators out there, some of who I refer out to all the time. So that's thing two. And then thing three, you're gonna feel crazy, but at the end of the day, like you're doing the thing. So you really have to be crazy to do this, and that's okay.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about that. Like, as an entrepreneur, you could give up that cushy 9 to 5 job that, isn't sexy or, everybody's like, okay, but there's no off button anymore. You're working essentially 24/7. So,
Yeah, and then even when you're off, your brain is like, yeah, but I'm not off. I'm gonna work. I'm
right.
gonna be really anxious about these seven things.
Yeah,
So
you're running through all these scenarios in your head and how to move forward here, or there. So, well, Chase, I really appreciate you coming on, and this was a blast to launch off my new section of my podcast called The Creative Corner.
awesome. Thanks for having me, Paul. Talk soon.